This is set up to do that.
Quick introduction.
Hi, my name is Cindy Hay, and I'm very honored to be here. I actually have a woman who's really close to giving birth, so I may have to run in the middle. I apologize. I've been a midwife for 23 years. I worked in a couple birth centers. Diane was one of my amazing teachers. And I have worked in a home birth practice in the Bay Area for about 13 years, and I just did my last home birth, and then now I'm doing first center birth at Pacifica Family Maternity Center, the new birth center a few blocks from here. And the exciting thing about that for me is that we're going to be able to accept Medi-Cal, and so it feels like it opens the range for anybody to be able to birth there.
Hi, I'm Diane Holzer. Thank you. Short. And I've been a midwife I've been attending births for over 30 years. I guess I call myself a midwife for about 30 years now, almost 30 years. I started like Ina May did, only we were an unintentional community. We weren't intentional about it. We were very unintentional about it, but it happened. And after so many births, you sort of start reading about it and realize, oh, really, that could happen, oh, I better get some training. So found my way down to the border in El Paso, Texas, and went to school there, became a midwife, and fell in love with birth and midwives, and found that I loved teaching women to become midwives almost as much as I love being with women on their journey to become mothers. And so ended up staying there in that midwifery school for a decade, teaching midwives and helping women give birth, and got to really realize what normal was, because normal birth, you don't really necessarily hear a lot about it or see it in the hospitals anyways. And so being on the border and helping lots and lots and lots of women, I got to get the great gift of being infused with what normal really, really is. By seeing lots and lots and lots of different kinds of births and different kinds of women and different kinds of babies, and it was quite delicious to be there. I was very happy. But in that community, midwives are a little more than baby catchers. They're also healers and physicians and massage therapists and bone setters and all kinds of things. So in that setting, we often got brought to us all kinds of things, all kinds of family practice care, and I felt like I had a good grounding in alternative medicine. I grew up in a family that didn't use doctors and used herbs, and I studied homeopathy and alternative medicine, but didn't have a grounding in basic allopathic diagnosis, and found that I was, once again, doing something without having any training. I was doing a lot of family practice in that setting, and that's how I wound my way to California, and decided to go to the Stanford Primary Care Associate Program and become a physician assistant. So now my life is a mixture and blend of doing family practice and doing midwifery. So I get to be with mamas and babies during their pregnancy, and then continue to see them afterwards with well baby care and well woman care and infections and stuff that comes up in life, and grandma's blood pressure. And so I get to grow up with the families, and I just love it. And I found the perfect world for myself. So that's what I'm doing now. I've been in California the last 20 years with a home birth practice up in the North Bay. Mostly I've done a lot of births here too. I see a lot of my clients in the office, in the audience, which is really sweet. But mostly I'm up in Marina doing that.
Hi, so, oops, the water broke. My name is Wendy Kennan, and I'm a doula with the Jewish Doula Group that's based in Berkeley, but we support birth of all kinds of women all over the Bay Area. And I did a DONA training actually in 2002, but I've been attending birth since the early 90s. And a lot of the way that I look at my work in supporting women having their babies and having their choices honored and being informed about what their choices are during birth, it's really about, empowering women not to become victims of an industrialized birth system. And a lot of what Ina May was talking about, the disparities in the outcomes of birth within America, and also the high maternal mortality rate that is rising. And while the U.S. spends twice as much as other countries on healthcare, we are 50th in birth outcomes in the world. So I have a lot of social justice in the way that I approach my work. As a Jewish doula, we have a lot in our tradition that's about women as the center and women as the redeemer, and I like to be able to bring that into the birth experience. We have a spiritual framework that comes from our tradition that usually people appreciate whether they're Jewish or not, and also supporting other people's spiritual context for their birth. So I would say the social justice aspect and spirituality are part of what is not happening in the hospital settings, and happy to be able to bring that in more.
Thank you so much. Quick tidbit is that Cindy and Diane both attended my home birth at these two, so you know how wonderful they are. A quick, question I wanted to ask you is, in the experience in your practice, what does a fearless birth mean to you? And then we'll open up to questions from the audience.
What does a fearless birth mean to me? It's funny because before we came over, I was having dinner with some really good friends, and one of my really good friends was one of my first clients. And she said, I was saying, yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about fearless birth, tonight. And she said, well, you told me I had to have some fear. You said I'm going to out you in that audience because you told me that I better have some fear because I didn't have enough fear. And it was funny because I probably did, because she, of all, anything in the world, she was like the most trusting woman, and everything was going to be beautiful and fine and everything was perfect. And I always say, well, fear, a little bit of fear is normal. A little bit of fear is normal, especially if it's your first baby, I mean, you're walking into this amazing journey that you've never done before, and any of you have given birth before. If you try and describe it, you can't really describe it to somebody what it's like, and even if someone is describing it to you, you can't really know what it is, the power of what that is. And so going into it is having a little bit of fear is a normal thing, and actually I do get a little worried if someone says that they have none at all. So I think that some little tad of fear can be not a bad thing, but I think more rather than fear is trust, is what I like to think about birth, is trusting the process. You can be a little fearful of it, but actually having a deep trust to know that our bodies are built for having babies, and that the vast majority of us can do it just fine without midwives even. I mean, people are always thanking me for what I do, and it's like, no, I didn't do it. I just sat there and watched you, You're the one who did all the work. So it's more about trust rather than absence of fear. It's just really being able to trust that your body really does know what to do. It has this innate wisdom or instinct or reflex, whatever you want to call it, depending on what circles you're sitting in. It just works. It really works and happens. And to be surrounded with people who also believe that really facilitates that sort of calmness and accepting energy to really happen. And it definitely have been at many, many, many births where everybody in the room trusts it, and it definitely flows a lot smoother than if people are very mistrustful of it. So I guess that's what it is to me, is more trust in the process, in the body.
Yeah, one other thing I would add is a lack of excess fear, of fear that's not necessary, because some fear is normal and part of the process and protects people, clients and midwives. But a fear of somebody doing something to you, a fear of somebody not respecting you or your choices, your body, a fear of not being in a place you feel safe or comfortable, that kind of fearless, I would say, getting rid of the fear that's not necessary is really what I would think is what I think of fearless birth. And I think that part of that is having trust in your care provider, and that no matter who you choose, to have somebody that is on your team and shares your philosophy and really listens to you. I think one way that a lot of fear is dispelled is from being heard. A lot of people there's not time in the medical system oftentimes for people to really be heard and to deal with both, all the different sides of being, going through this whole journey. It's a physical experience for sure, but it's really an emotional experience too. It's a family, social experience. It's a spiritual experience. It's, on all levels. And so something that I think helps dispel that fear is time, and just having time with your care provider. It's really, it's a special thing that you don't often get in other modalities than you do with midwives. And so that's one thing I really love about midwifery is the time, the respect, the listening. A lot of times there's a lot of talking because there's so much information that has to be imparted, but some providers don't take that moment to just stop and listen and really trying to hear what somebody needs. So.
I think I like to build from the idea of feeling like you can trust your care providers and knowing that you're not alone in birth. And obviously trusting the process is really important. I actually really love the stories of women who've had a vaginal birth after multiple cesareans, and the way that they talk about, like, I had the power to do this, I could do anything, after having that power taken before, multiple times. It's like, that's just such a beautiful example of what you can do with birth, and knowing that you're not alone. You feel like you're suffering, you have other people to remind you that it's not about suffering, it's about progress, and it's about a process. And there's people around you who are familiar with what you're going through and know how to help guide you through it, if you need that, or just will be able to hold the space for you while you do what you need to do without unnecessary interventions, people who know how to look for problems if they arise, so that you can feel comfortable to just go through what you need to do and know that you have people looking after you. So that's how I see how we help facilitate fearless birth. And I think films like this and documentaries like the one we saw before it are a really important way of helping people trust the process. And like Anna Mae said, it can't be only women, right? We need to all be informed and be allied and trust that process. As a doula, I know too, working with not just the mother, but often the partner, if the partner is really scared and not trusting the process, it can actually undermine my ability to support the natural process. So it's really important to have everybody working together as a team on the same page and understand the wishes of the mother. So those are some of the ways I see that we can do it.
Can I tell a super quick story about fearless birth? So when I went to the interview with Mika, I was really ready to say, no, I'm not going to do a twin birth at home, no. And honestly, it was all her lack of fear and confidence that every step of the way made me feel that this was the right choice. And it was first the twin birth at home, and then the second baby being beach. And I think her confidence infused the entire team, and it totally made her body relaxed and made it all work. So, thank you.
Wow.
Any questions from the audience? Anybody?
everybody.
I'm currently not functioning as either. I'm a stay-at-home mom with a homeschooling daughter who does Suzuki violin. And my previous comment is I'm a naturopathic doctor and a midwife. And I probably attended about 500 births somewhere between India, Guatemala, Canada, and here in the United States as well. And my understanding of this group, what I'm looking at is this flyer here, is this is both socio and political. It's a movement. We're really trying to encourage people to make a choice. And so I think what we need to stand in the face of is this political and economic situation that is postponing the revolution of women taking true power in their bodies, which we looked at all these incredible videos, and what came across was that this is an empowerment for people. And I think we as women and men, because we're all begotten of women, need to stand up to a medical political system that has been overriding the essence of who we are. And I kind of expanded my consciousness into looking at Tantra and how we teach sexuality to our children, how we introduce, sexuality from a sacred or profane perspective. And predominantly there's a huge amount of profane websites out there that are not encouraging positive sexuality. So I really feel that when we take back the power of our own genitalia, of our personhood, that we could actually make a difference. And primary midwives are actually encouraging people to be completely in this power spot of our bodies. This is our core, this is our root, this is what we were born to be here, this is how we feel security. And so, it's just an incredible movement. So that's what I think that we need to be fearless about, is just taking that claim, our right to be people and loving each other, loving our sensuality, loving our sexuality, and a huge way to get formed with that is through birth. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That is exactly like what we are trying to work on. This is our bodies, this is our lives, and I'm working for my great-grandchild. She's gonna have it easy. I'll be there to help my other ones, but my great-grandchild, she's gonna be on her own, and she is gonna be able to have all the choices that she wants to be able to make. Any other questions? Anyone else have anything that this movie brought up? Any birth story that they would like to share about how their birth could have been, or should have been, or was perfect and wonderful?
Okay, so I think we'll go ahead and.
What did she say?
Yeah, I can just share something. I think, I love seeing the children, watching the births. I was, before I had my first baby, I was 2 births because I was at when I was 9 and 11, I saw my sister and my brother being born. And it was so powerful, and it gave me so much strength because as a person, not a midwife or something, when I came to my birth, I'd already seen 2. And so, and also when I had my second child, my first child, who was 2.5, was also there. And I think it's a really powerful thing, and maybe you can talk about how to bring children in, or what part that plays in terms of, normalizing the birth experience for people.
It's not only bringing children in, but just bringing everybody in. Once we took birth out of the community and brought it into the hospital, it started changing, and that's when a lot of the fear started creeping in. Women have always had fear to go through that door, but it really intensified once it stopped being a normal event. Once, when you talk to older people, and they'll tell you, that they would hear babies being born in their house. It was a normal thing. They might not have been in the room, they might have been see it happen, but it was normal that, Aunt Susan was having her baby in there, and Mom was helping her, and, all the women were in the room. And it was a part of daily living. It was something that happened. It was a joyous affair most of the time, right? But when it got taken out of there, and it was a place, where sick people go, and they're sick and they die, and things happen to them in the hospital, and that encourages the fear. It's not just the kids, it's everybody. Nobody has been to a birth, It's really rare to find someone who's who's been to a birth, and just the way that we look at the whole thing, the whole prenatal care, the whole everything. I mean, I like to tell the story about how, back in the day, when we were doing the farm stuff and the back to the land movements, I mean, I would get together with my clients and we would talk about hopes and dreams and what they were thinking and what color they thought their baby's hair was going to be, and, and diet and exercise and all that kind of stuff. And now, one of the first conversations I have to have with women is, well, have you thought about genetic testing? Because there's this really small window that has to happen really early in the pregnancy. And in order to give a full informed consent of options out there, because there are many options and everybody has a different comfort level with what they want to do with their lives and their babies, I have to start talking about things, that could be wrong. This could be wrong, and there's these tests that if you want to do them, you have to do them now, and they're going to test for this, and it just puts people in this, oh my God, you mean, like, my baby, something could be wrong with my baby, and right from the get-go, this little bit of fear just kind of gets insinuated in the whole process. Rather than focusing on the celebration of it, they have to really start getting into their head about, what could maybe go wrong and what kind of testing I really need to do to, figure that out. And if I do figure that out, what am I going to do about that? And it's this whole mind thing that happens to people right at the beginning of their pregnancies. And it just continues on, because as time goes on, we have more and more tests and more things that you can do to try and make it safe, I guess. I don't know why we keep inventing all these new things, but there's so much out there now that the care that gets given really does, fill people with fear as opposed to fill people with trust in the process. It's all part of the bailiwick that we've created that definitely needs to be unwound. And yes, bringing children in is a great thing. I love it when I have clients who were at their sister's or brother's births, because they've got that inculcated in them. Oh yeah, I saw my brother being born, and they're not afraid because they know. So yeah, do you have any ideas about better ways to bring kids in?
What I've noticed about children at births, it's very similar to women. If you listen to the children, they'll tell you what they can handle. And if you prepare them enough and you give them an idea that, mom's working hard, that it is a lot of work, that's what the sounds come from. And if they say they don't want to be there, then they shouldn't be there. And if they want to be there, they can probably handle it, as long as there's somebody with them who can take them out if they change their mind.
I like the idea, especially of sharing birth with other women that dream of having children. And I also was blessed to be able to be at births before I had my own baby. So I'm a big advocate of it, and I try to bring as many apprentices and friends in as any of my clients are comfortable with, and if they don't want anybody, that's fine. I do have a few questions for the audience, if it's okay. Like, how many midwives are in the audience? Please raise your hand. Okay, I had a feeling. And how many doulas are in the audience? Please raise your hand. And lactation consultants in the audience? Okay, interesting. Thank you. It's really curious. Chiropractor, yay.
I'll add a quick thought on children in childbirth. Diane was my midwife for my second baby, who is not here, and Diane didn't exactly make it, so instead we had the littlest midwife, Magnolia over here, and my husband, and a baby in the bathtub. And then she came, all was well. But it was an amazing experience. It's an amazing experience in me. You can't have any fear when your kid's there because you can't show fear. So I had to be cool, and she was cool, and we had a baby.
Hi, I spoke with this about Cindy last week when I met her, because I just recently switched from an OB to midwifery. And I just wanted to see how you guys handle, I spoke about this, but I've been have a lot of skepticism from friends and family who don't exactly support my decision, just because they're afraid. Not so much I'm not afraid, but they're afraid of what I'm choosing to do. So much so that I haven't even told my mother-in-law yet that I'm doing this, because she's a nurse practitioner, and I was born as a C-section, my husband was C-section, scheduled C-section, and I don't know one personal person in my life that has not gotten an epidural. So for me to do it, and I just get laughed at in the face. So every time I say I'm going to have a natural birth, not in a hospital. So well, how do you tell your clients how to deal with the skepticism and the pressure that they're getting from everyone else?
Well, one thing that's helpful is that there was a huge birth center study of over 15,000 women, and the results are excellent. There's also been a huge home birth study, and again, excellent results. So there's, statistical analysis and evidence-based practice, if that helps some people. Some people are more of the scientific brain. And then sometimes I think just have them talk to your midwife, because then they can actually ask their questions and talk about their fears